Someone might not look at Coco as marriage material. You show your whole everything about your body all over social media. But they've been married for over 20 plus years. They seem happy. That's marriage material for him. Whereas another man, like, I'll never. They may look at her as like a whore, something like that. So that's why I said marriage material is based on the person who you with, and just communicating who you are and not changing who you are to be with a person.
Don't pretend to be something you're not to become marriage material for somebody else. Eventually, you're not going to be able to keep that charade up. It's important to, when you are yourself authentically, do you meet those criteria for the other person in order to decide whether or not the two of you are going to work? If you're faking the funk, if you're doing it to kind of catch this person, that's going to fall apart. So in your natural state, outside of this person, do you meet that criteria? And I think that'll be the answer for that specific person, whether you are wifey material or not.
What makes a woman marriage material? Now, I know we have a married woman up in here. So let's start off with you. What makes a woman marriage material?
I went first, the first question, but okay, it's all
All
right.
right, we can listen. I'm sorry, we can move around. If anybody else has the answer, then
I'm just gonna say that I think it's distinct to the person that you connect with, because what my husband may have found in me as what was marriage material for him may not necessarily be marriage material for someone else. Like in these spaces, I hear a lot of times that men are looking for someone that is fit, feminine, friendly, and all of that kind of stuff. Not looking for somebody who's submissive, and then all of. And when my husband met me, I was none of those. I was 18. I was submitting to who? I wasn't even thinking along those lines. But what he valued in me was the fact that I was a person that would challenge him, to be his better self. I was there to also help. Like if he needed something, I was there to, be that person to provide assistance. I was open, just to trying new things, learning new things, not automatically just like, I'm not checking for that, things like that. So things that he specifically looked for that would be in alignment with what he felt he needed in a mate, I had those qualities. But I think that would change depending on, the type of person that, each man looks for something different.
okay. Let's go ahead and hop to Miss Enos.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I think men are not a monolith. I think each man is significantly different. And I think there's standards and specifics for what a wife is. They get to determine that the same way that as a woman, you get to choose what husband material is for you, and what it would be for me would be different from you, Curves, would be different from Mistaken, would be different from Shan. And so everybody has their own definition. And I think in that dating process, it's important to ask those questions about, what does that look like to you? What does wifey material look like to you? What are the specifics of that? How do you define this word? Like, I don't think that there's any kind of one size fits all solution for this. And at the same time, I'm going to also say that you don't pretend to be something you're not to become marriage material for somebody else. Eventually, you're not going to be able to keep that charade up. It's important to, when you are yourself authentically, do you meet those criteria for the other person in order to decide whether or not the two of you are going to work? If you're faking the funk, if you're doing it to kind of catch this person, that's going to fall apart. So in your natural state, outside of this person, do you meet that criteria? And I think that'll be the answer for that specific person, whether you are wifey material or not.
So even to go a little further, like, okay, so I get that there's different, it fits different for everybody. But like, are there, you believe that there's any core values that certain women should have, like, um, that qualify her to be a wife, or is that different for everyone? Like, are there like, should you cook, should you clean, or is that different for everyone?
No, that's different for everybody. Like, there are men out there who, are men of means. Cooking, cleaning, we can outsource that, right? There are men who, want a woman who's a go-getter so that they can share those things in common. There are men who want a woman who aspires to be the greatest housewife ever. I don't think there's such thing as core values across the board. Because if that were true, then we would have some questions about some of these women that are married and have successfully stayed married that don't meet those, right? So I don't think there's anything other than, in a heterosexual relationship to say being a woman is maybe the only core value that we can share across the board. But even that people define differently.
Okay,
I
that's fair enough. Go ahead, Miss Taken.
I was gonna say
Oh,
I beg to differ. I do think that there are certain core values that not just women but each partner should have in order to have a long lasting relationship, like a core value of respect. That's going to be something that is going to be needed. I would not here I don't see how any person in a relationship would say, well, respect really doesn't matter that much to me. You know what I'm saying? So I think that that would be a general core value. But what that respect looks like to each partner may be different, because men's value in terms of respect may look different than what a woman's respect, what she might need. I would also think in terms of a level of accepting the person for who they are, is a core value that you should have. I think a lot of times we go wrong with, we meet someone, we like them, and be like, you know what? If they, I can fix that. I can change that about that person. So learning how to just be open in terms of, if this person does not change anything about them right now, like for the rest of their life, they said, can I accept this person? So having that core value of truly that level of understanding in terms of understanding the person for who they are. I think that's a core value as well. And then the other thing is knowing how, I guess another core value is being cooperative. I think that needs to be a core value on both parts, because that's the only way that
can you elaborate on cooperative, please? Because sometimes I hear cooperative and I automatically think you want to treat me like a dog. Like you want me to sit, you want me to do this. Like, and this is just, maybe it's just my brain, but like when you say cooperative, like, can you just elaborate on that a little bit?
I think, like I said, for both people, cooperative is meaning that you're going to be flexible in order to make the relationship work. So there may be some times where I may not necessarily, agree with something or feel like doing something, but for the betterment of the relationship, I might, cooperate in, like, and say, okay, I guess that's kind of more like compromise. But I might say, all right, well, this time, all right, I'll move, I'll do this, this time, but next time, can we do X, Y, and Z? Just so that way both of our needs are being met, and not one person is always feeling like they're the one that is having to give in for the betterment of the relationship. You want to make sure that you're working towards like the same goal, and so that each person's needs are getting met. That's kind of what I look at, what
So
cooperation is.
I just wanted to jump in real quick because Mistaken, I agree with you if we're talking about a healthy relationship. However, not everybody's in a healthy relationship and their relationship still lasts, right? And so to say that those things can be applied across the board, I don't know that I could say that, because I see people who don't necessarily cooperate, and they're just like labeled as spicy. Like it's just a part of their personality, and like, it keeps things interesting. When I see people who, from the outside looking in, don't seem to be super respectful, that might be just a dynamic that that partner is comfortable operating in. So I think there's so many marriages that look so differently, that aren't necessarily healthy from the outside looking in, that still happen, that still work, that still last. But if we're talking about a healthy marriage, I would 100% agree with you. I
So
just
why
don't
would
think
we talk about an unhealthy?
because they
I
exist.
think the goal would be to be in a healthy, happy relationship.
But I think that
So,
what she's saying is what's compatible for one person isn't necessarily compatible for another person. Because if they're just, if you put a healthy person with a damaged person, ain't nothing they can do. But maybe if there's damage together,
right, but if you're
damage
focusing
away.
on those core values, like I think that's too where women, I guess men may go wrong too, is that they haven't identified what those core values are for them, right? And then they end up in the relationship, like you just said, because they haven't identified those core values and have met the partner that share those same core values with them.
But I don't agree
Typically,
with that either, right? I think from the outside looking in, again, like we can say that, maybe they haven't defined it, but it could just be something that isn't important to us. Like getting money together could be like the only like shared value in that relationship that's making it work and making it last, right? But that might not be important to somebody else, somebody who wants to take the sole provider role. Like I think a few weeks ago we were talking about, Krishan and Blueface. That's not a healthy relationship, and yet it lasts, right? We see a lot of those relationships in the media, and I think it's important to have those conversations in contrast to healthy relationships, because there's a lot of people that are exposed to those kinds of relationships in their everyday and don't understand that they're unhealthy, and then just wind up replicating them. So I think for me, that's why it's important to bring it into the conversation, because it is reality.
Okay, and let's slide down to Pretty Hustle. What do you feel like? What makes a woman marriage material? You gotta unmute it.
My bad. I'm sorry, y'all. Marriage. I don't like to use marriage material because what is that? Because like Miss Taken mentioned, it depends on the person. His definition of what's marriage material might not be with the next man. Like for instance, let's use. I know this might be old school, but I feel like it's a good one. Let's use iced tea and cocoa. Someone might not look at cocoa as marriage material. You show your whole everything about your body all over social media. But they've been married for over 20 plus years. They seem happy. That's marriage material for him. Whereas another man, like, I'll never. They may look at her as like a whore, something like that. So that's why I said marriage material is just based on the person who you with and just communicating who you are and not changing who you are to be with a person.
I mean, I think what the ladies have said is, I'm sitting here like, okay, but she just said what I just wanted to say. So, being that I will be choosing my son's wife, these are all beneficial things. He doesn't even know. But I would have to agree that it's all about the person, who it is, because I've talked to the guy who I actively talk to now. I run these things by him, and he does not agree with half of the things that we talk about on here. He's like, that's not for me. I understand that maybe for them, but for me, can you do this? And what I find is what both said. It's all about the person. And that's the way it's supposed to be, because there's always a person for you. And I think we felt it. We want everybody to be for us. And no, if she's not doing what you need her to do, she's just not for you. She's for somebody else. And again, I think it was Nas. You can't change people. You cannot, because that real person will show up, and that's what leads to divorce. So again, I agree with the ladies. Make sure you're authentically yourself, and just Stop trying to be something that you're not, because your right person will come around, and it is what it is. But you're right.
Now,
There are bases that there are some things that just need to be put in place. Like there's a foundation, but like Ina said, not everybody goes by that same. Everybody doesn't value the same thing.
for sure. I definitely don't think that there's like a blueprint to um what makes like a woman marriage material. It looks different for everybody. And it's just you finding that right person that,
So
like, to me, I just feel like you have to find that person that you want to do life with, where it works out. It just flows. It's not a thing where you're trying to, like, one of you ladies said, um pretty much trying to be somebody that you're not, and oh, I think that this is what he wants, so you're trying to paint a face that that's not really who you are.